Susan Lee, I'll bring you in, and I don't think there'd be very many people in the country who would have been shocked by the pictures on the front page of The Australian today of a young, probably 5 or 6-year-old boy holding up the decapitated head of an Iraqi soldier, apparently.
A boy that looked as if he was in his thongs and board shorts, a boy that looked like any boy you would see in an Australian street, and there's not many pictures I see that just absolutely make my stomach turn, and that did. But it also made me realise how close this war, this terrorist army of the Islamic State is, how close it is to us. I mean, we're not removed from these things. And the government is making some very careful and considered steps about protecting Australians from those who may leave our shores to kill other Muslims, for example, overseas, and those who may return from those battlefields bringing the evil ideas and initiatives with them. And, I mean, just in response to Jen, OK, so you cancel a passport for someone who has 2 passports. It doesn't render them stateless. It's taking a sensible measure. We would be asking people to demonstrate their rationale and their reasons for doing the things they do. We wouldn't be saying in a blanket sense that a group of people can't travel or can't move. I mean, and just remember that all of this is supervised by the Inspector General of Intelligence and Security, an independent statutory body. But I just want to say one more thing, Tony. We must be really careful with we must recognise several things about Muslim Australians. One is that Islam is a religion of peace. It absolutely is. I was attending some Eid festival celebrations in my hometown of Albury on the weekend and talking to people who are concerned about the image that they have in the wider Australian community. But we must be also careful that we don't encourage young Muslims towards a more radical interpretation of their faith. We must be inclusive. We must reach out to particularly young Muslim Australians who feel aggrieved by some of the things that they see around them, that they feel reflect unfairly on them.
How do you do that, by the way?
Well, you do it at the community level, you do it at the school level, you do it at the household level. As I said, governments can't impose what people think behind closed doors. But it is really important that every single Australian thinks about this and, as I said, reaches out. In country towns across my electorate, we've got new citizens coming from overseas, many of them on humanitarian visas, and it's been really heartwarming to see the way local communities reach out and engage with small groups. Now, sometimes there's misunderstandings and sometimes there's hate speech, but sort of you see it in a small group, you realise how it actually can be done quite well, and the ripple effect goes out, and people feel at home as a result, and that's just so important.
John Stackhouse, listening to this, I'm sure you've had the same debates in Canada.
Well, no, we don't have a lot of Canadians who go fight overseas on behalf of Muslim movements elsewhere. So this is actually something that's more Australian than Canadian. And as is obvious here, there's lots of different levels to the policy question. I think bringing people home, if they're going to come home, then they're going to be responsible for their actions elsewhere. But to keep our country safe, we do have to try to figure out who's who and what's what without being unrealistic and sentimental. I mean, I have to respectfully disagree. I've been teaching world religions for 25 years. Islam is not a religion of peace. They've tried to trademark that, but it's just not true. Islam is a religion that copes with the real world. And in Islam, including in its holy books, there are provisions for warfare. And there are provisions for defensive warfare, and there are also provisions for the extension of Islam, which is why the whole history of Islam has been steady territorial expansion. Of course, it's a religion of peace, by which they mean the subjugation of other people under Sharia. And that's peace, but it's an imperial sort of peace. And I'm not judging it. I mean, we Christians have done the same thing, and lots of other religions have done the same thing as well.
Well, I mean, I beg to differ. You do appear to be judging it.
No, I'm simply correcting the record. I mean, as a matter of fact, the Quran and the Sharia are very clear that the jihad can be both the internal, the greater jihad of subjecting myself to the will of God, and the lesser jihad is to subject the world to God. I mean, there's only 2 realms. There's Dar al-Islam, there's the submitted part of the world, and then there's the rest of the world that's not yet submitted to God, the Dar al-Harb, the situation of war, the house of war. So it's a pretty clear worldview. And while many of my Muslim friends are liberal and multicultural and love Canada and have no interest in the violent prosecution of their faith, and I think it's really important to understand, nonetheless, we just can't make sense of world history if we suggest that Islam doesn't have within it the legitimation of violence.